Hello everyone, welcome, I'm Robert, and today I want to discuss what I think are some of the best introductory solo board games. This is a question that I see often asked, people finding out that solo board gaming is a thing, and they ask, hey, what should I start with? And there's many choices. I've played tons and tons of board games by now, so I've gathered a couple big piles here of games that I'm going to discuss, and one big emphasis for this list, for me, is accessibility. I want to make sure that you don't get a sour first experience from a game that's too complex. So I've carefully picked these games that I believe are going to be a good way to ease you into the hobby. Another thing to keep in mind for this list is that it's in no particular order, although I'll leave what I think are some of the best choices for numbers 1 through 5. But anything above that is in no particular order. There's going to be lots of genres and lots of different experiences here to choose from. And with that said, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first, let's start with role player. So in role player, you're going to be creating a character and you're going to try to get the best score possible by accomplishing your backstory, class, and alignment goals. Okay, you're going to be manipulating dice and trying to draw or arrange them in the best way possible based on color or value, and you're going to be obtaining gear and abilities for your character. And it's very thematic. It's basically a gamification of the process of creating a character in D&D. And there's lots of variety just from the base game. It's very simple to learn, and running the AI opponent, running the AI opponent is very smooth and doesn't take a lot of upkeep really. There's tons of replayability just from using just from the amount of character, class, backstory, and alignment cards, and the different races. You're gonna have human, orc, elf, dwarf, just classic D&D fare, right? So very fun puzzle, and there's a lot of fun to be had here just from the base set. If you end up enjoying it, I recommend you pick up the Monsters and Minions expansion. But great start if you want to get into the hobby. Moving on, we have Elder Sign. So in Elder Sign, you're going to be playing as one or more investigators. There's going to be many to choose from, and you're going to pick a Cthulhu deity to go up against, and you're going to be rolling dice, gathering clues, gathering elder signs, gathering weapons and resources in a race against time to defeat the deity, right? And if you want to be introduced to the whole Arkham Horror games, this is a pretty good introduction to that. And once you get the hang of the base game, it can get a bit easy, all right, once you get the hang of the strategy. So I recommend picking up expansions if you end up liking it later on. They do ratchet up the difficulty and add even more variety. But great intro to the Arkham Horror world. And there really isn't much of an opponent that plays against you per se. There's no maintenance is what I'm saying. So very good fun game. If you enjoy dice chucking and pushing your luck and you like the horror theme, you're gonna be having a lot of fun with this. Check it out. Okay, so next we've got Tiny Epic Galaxies. This is one of the many games in the Tiny Epic series, and I think this is one of the best for you to pick first over the rest. You're gonna be creating a galactic civilization where you're gonna use your ships as workers to colonize planets, and you're gonna try to reach the 21 points before the enemy AI does. And during the enemy AI turns, you're gonna be rolling dice in its behalf to figure out what it does to hinder your plans. It is a bit higher on the upkeep aspect, okay, so you're gonna spend a few like a minute or so chucking dice just for the enemy to figure out what its actions are going to be for the turn, okay? But this game is really fun, and there's tons of planets from the planet deck with different actions and very fun effects. The art is gorgeous, and yeah, it's just lovely to play. It's one of my favorites from the Tiny Epic series, and it's a bit of an older design, but it holds up for me. So very fun, and there's also the Ultra Tiny Epic version. Now, the Ultra Tiny Epic version comes in a tiny cardboard box that's about like 30% smaller than this. I put mine on a crayon box because I didn't think the cardboard box was super durable, but it comes with cards that are that small, as you can see, okay? And it comes with tiny dice. So check that version out if you want a version that's half the price and much more portable. But great way to get into the Tiny Epic series if you're interested. My favorite from the series so far. Okay, so next we have Star Realms Frontiers. This is a deck builder, and in this game, for the solo mode, which is this is a multiplayer deck builder game, and it's space themed. But for the solo mode that is included, they include these boss cards that you can fight against. And in this game, you're gonna build up, you're gonna create a deck and optimize it with ships and space stations. With different factions and comboing the cards together based on factions, and you're gonna try to defeat one of these bosses. So each boss also has different difficulty levels. So there's lots of fun to be had here for this small package and simple rules. There's a lot of fun to be had. I mostly play the app version these days. There's a great Star Realms app where it lets you play against a full AI, and it's not the same as battling the monsters. This is exclusive to the physical version, which makes this even cooler. So this is not something that you can play in the app playing against these monsters that I'm aware of anyway. So this gives you more reason to get the physical version if you want. But yeah, also check out the app. I really like the app as well. So great intro to the deck building genre in board gaming. Check this out. Great value for this game. Okay, so next we have Ascension Eternal, another deck builder. And if you want a medieval themed deck builder as opposed to Star Realms Frontiers, which is a sci-fi themed one, this is a great choice. And the great thing about Ascension Eternal is, although there's many products in the Ascension line, I think this is one of the best because they choose cards from across all of the previous Ascension sets, and they create this very well curated selection of cards that create this deck, the possibilities of creating decks with this that feel really powerful. And it's very easy to run the AI opponent. What the AI opponent tries to do is it just steals points from you, and it puts some pressure on you, okay, before the game ends. So you have to try to have the best score at the end. And the combos here are wonderful just because of the card selection that they did. So great package, great value for what this is. And also check out the app. I also recommend that as well. But even though I've played the app to death, which I love, I still pull this out occasionally just because of the selection of cards that they made here. It's just awesome. So check it out. Ascension Eternal. Great value. Okay, so moving on, we have Jump Drive. This is what is known as an engine builder / tableau builder. And that's a big subgenre of board games, and I think this is one of the best ways to get introduced to it. Now, this is not a conventionally soloable game. It's not included in the box how to solo it. You have to print out a fan-made solo mode, and it's just very simple. You can just print it in a one-page text file. And it is in fact so good, that fan-made mode, that the guy that made it got hired to work on an official level for an expansion for this game, so that it becomes an official solo variant. So that goes on to tell you how good it is. And let me just show you here, because I don't actually carry the game in there. I put it in this little Ultra Pro box. Just to make it portable, because I think it's a bit overkill, the amount of space in it. And you got your tokens here, all right? Now, in this game, what you do is you build your empire with your tableau, basically. You're building a table that represents your empire. So you're going to have different facilities, planets, or things that represent your empire, all right? And the goal in the solo mode is to create an empire that meets certain criteria, and you only have a certain amount of attempts to do so before you lose, all right? And there's no maintenance against an AI to speak of in this game, so it's just you making the best out of your hand of cards. So that's one thing I really love about this game. There's no maintenance really, no upkeep once you learn that solo variant. And I like that solo variant so much, in fact, that I made card versions of it so that you don't have to carry a piece of paper around with no graphics. I made a graphic version in card form that you can print and cut out and just glue it against a bulk card and sleeve it. So I'll leave a link to the official variant, or if you want the card version of it, you can do that too. But there's also an expansion coming that will include the solo mode for this, all right, on an official level if you want to wait for that. If not, there's just lots of fun to be had just with the base game content, and this is just an amazing way to get introduced to the tableau builder genre. Great game. Jump Drive, one of my favorites. Check it out. Okay, so moving on, we have Friday by Friedman Freeze. This is a completely solo game. It's a from the ground up solo game. It's not a multiplayer game with a solo mode or anything like that. And I always appreciate a completely from the ground up solo game. And this is a deck builder like a couple other games I've mentioned in this list. And I'll mention also though, little disclaimer, this is one of the more complex games from this list, and it is a bit more difficult, but I think it's just great when you do get a victory, when you get that first win in this game. It just feels great, and you feel accomplished, and the puzzle, the more you play it, it rewards repeated play. So in this game, you're gonna build your deck and optimize it in order to defeat pirates at the end of it. But there's gonna be lots of obstacles along the way. You have to manage life, which are these little tokens right here, and it's a currency that is very precious in the game, and you have to manage it very carefully. And you're gonna be going through your deck, and your character Friday is gonna age. And that's just bad cards that get added to your deck, and you're gonna have to deal with a whole bunch of obstacles. And if you do make it to the end, you have to fight the pirates, and that's how you win, by defeating them. But yeah, it's quite a journey when you go through it, and it rewards repeated play. But yeah, I highly recommend it if you want a completely solo deck builder. And check out Friedman Freeze's designs. He has many designs out there, many interesting designs, so check out his games. But yeah, Friday, a great little intro game, a bit more complex and a bit more difficult, but really rewarding once you beat it. Okay, so moving on, we have Puzzle Dungeon. This is an indie title that you're not gonna find at a local game shop or anything like that. You have to buy it directly from the designer from their Etsy store, all right? I'll leave a link to that, and I think they said that they're also gonna put it up on the Game Crafter. That's a print-on-demand board game service, okay? Now, in Puzzle Dungeon, which it doesn't come on this plastic box, it comes in a cardboard box. I just glued it to this because I carry this everywhere, and also I needed more room inside of the box to put the sleeved cards, okay? But in Puzzle Dungeon, you're gonna pick a character of which there's plenty to choose from, all right? Which adds lots of replayability. Each character also has a hard mode, all right, which it doubles the amount of replayability as well. But you're gonna pick a character, and you're gonna go up against a deck of monsters that you have. You're gonna arrange them in rows, and you have to go up against them using your character and this arsenal deck of cards. So this game has a huge inspiration from Spider Solitaire, and honestly I've never played that before. I'm just quoting the designer. If I'm correct, he said that he's inspired by Spider Solitaire. Never played it myself, to be honest, but just great game, and it really feels like a dungeon crawl. And the art is lovely, and for the price, this just packs a huge punch. I really and I just love how simple it is. There's no AI. This rulebook is super simple, and there's no AI to speak of, okay? You're not taking out your enemy's turn to see what they do. None of that. It's just you with your hand of cards and your character and your row of monsters, just figuring out the best way to use your arsenal cards. It really is that simple. It's super portable, doesn't occupy a lot of table space. Just great game, one of my favorites. And again, you're not gonna find this at a store. I'll leave a link to this where you can find it. But awesome game, Puzzle Dungeon. Check it out. Okay, so next we have the Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. So what this game does is it takes the big box version of Castles of Burgundy and it captures it just using a few dice and a sheet of paper, all right? So this is known as a roll and write game, and it's a pretty popular genre of board games where all you do is have either some dice or a deck of cards, and you just use the provided sheet and you bring your own pencil or pen, and that's really all of the components for the game. It's a pretty beloved genre, and this was my first roll and write, and I just really love what this game offers for how minimalistic it is. It feels like it captures a big game, and it offers great decisions just using this sheet of paper and a few dice. It really is wonderful, and I have not played the big version of the game, the big box version of Castles of Burgundy, but I don't think I need to. And it's very easy to learn. There really isn't much maintenance to speak of. For playing it solo, all it does is it just gives you some instructions, some parameters, some limitations, and it sets a limited amount of time in order for you to beat your high score, right? You gotta score as high as possible, and there's some cool replayability because there's different layouts for your map. All right, so there's sheets A, B, C, and D. All right. So super portable. You don't have to take the whole box with you. If you want to take this on a trip or for you're gonna spend the weekend somewhere, you can just grab a few of these sheets and bring the dice and your pen. You don't even need to bring the box. So one of my favorite roll and write games, and a great introduction to this awesome genre, the Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. Check it out. Next, we have Pandemic Hot Zone North America. There's also a Europe version if you prefer that, and you can combine them both for extra variability. But anyway, this is a smaller version of the bigger box Pandemic game, and it also shortens the playtime and changes a few rules, but it's a great introduction to the Pandemic system. And if you end up enjoying this, you can then, I recommend the Wrath of the Lich King Pandemic system game. If you're a Warcraft fan, you're gonna enjoy that even more. But a great game that for small footprint and small amount of components, relatively speaking, I feel that it offers a big board game experience in a short amount of time. So I really enjoyed this. You can take your pick for this or the Europe version, or maybe both. But yeah, great intro to the Pandemic system. Check it out. Pandemic Hot Zone North America. Okay, moving on, we have Herbaceous. So Herbaceous, I don't have the box for it anymore, unfortunately, so I'm gonna leave up an image of what the cover looks like. But this is what the cards look like, and in this game, it's a set collection game where you're trying to collect plants for your pots, and you're trying to score based on if you obtain sets in pairs, or by how many different types of plants, or depending also if they're all the same type of plant. So you have different scoring conditions based on how you collect the plants. And this game is super simple, and it's a multiplayer game with a solo mode added, but the solo mode is very simple, and there really isn't much of an AI to run, honestly. It's just you collecting your sets of plants. It's super relaxing, super chill, lovely artwork, and the way it sets up, you can play 2 games in a row from setting up once, because you only use half the deck basically to play one game. It is a bit too simple for my tastes these days, but I still do enjoy it every now and then, and I play it with my family as well. But that doesn't mean that you won't enjoy it. There's just some times where you just don't want to play a super complex game or anything, or a super crunchy game. This game fits the bill for a super relaxing and simple game. Herbaceous, check it out. Alright, so moving on, we have Bargain Basement Bathysphere. So this was recently released by WizKids, and this is based on a pretty popular free print and play game, alright, that you can still download to this day. I'll leave a link to that for free, completely free, and all you need is just regular printer paper, print it on that, bring some dice, get a pen or a pencil and eraser, and you're good to go. That's all you need to start playing. So the great thing about this is that it introduces the rules to you slowly, all right, through different scenarios, and it's a legacy game. So in case you don't know, a huge thing with board game these days is legacy elements. So that means that things change from game to game. So there's permanent changes to how the game plays. It's not like Uno or Monopoly where every time you play, the deck is the same or the board in Monopoly is the same every time you play. No, in legacy games, something changes in between each game, all right? And this is a pretty great introduction to that. So in this game, you're going to be rolling dice to dive to the bottom of the ocean and try to do so before your Bathysphere is destroyed. And you're going to be using these maps where you're going to mark your descendants into the ocean floor and then try to make your way back up before you run out of oxygen or your bathysphere breaks. So a great game with simple mechanics, and it introduces you more and more mechanics as the campaign goes, develops. But yeah, you can still download the free print and play version and print it really cheap on just regular paper, or buy this recently released lovely production. I really like it. Of Bargain Basement Bathysphere. Check it out. Great intro to legacy board games. Okay, next we have A Gentle Rain. And to me, this is a master class in simplicity and minimalism. I just really, really love for the few components it has, for the small box it comes in, for the very small rulebook and low rules weight. I just love what this game offers. It's so simple to learn, it's so relaxing, and it's perfect at the end of a stressful day. All right, if you don't want to go beat monsters in a dungeon crawler or anything any kind of game that's violent in nature like that. Not that I have anything against that, but if you just want something really peaceful and chill, A Gentle Rain is just perfect for that. And unfortunately, as of the recording of this video, this game is in dire need of a reprint, so it might be pretty hard to find, unfortunately. But when it was in print, it was. I also loved that the price was right. It was very cheap. It was under $20 if I remember correctly. But yeah, for a very low price, you get this nice small package, and all the components is just a rule book, which I just love how it's how simple and how beautifully designed it is. And you get a stack of tiles and these beautiful tokens. All right. So now, although the game can be played multiplayer, it really is meant to be played solo. It's mainly a solo game. It's like if you want to play it cooperatively, it's if you want to play multiplayer, it's more cooperative. But this really shines as a solo game, in my opinion. But yeah, A Gentle Rain, just beautiful, beautiful and simple game. Check it out. Hopefully it'll get a reprint soon. Alright, next we have Palm Island, and this is a game that you don't require a table at all to play it. You can just play it in your hand, alright? And it pretty much is a purely solitaire game. You can play it multiplayer, technically it does have multiplayer rules, but this shines as a solo game. And I always take this game with me on trips. It's a must for me every time I go on a trip. Now I never go without taking a copy of the game with me. So when you buy it, the cool thing is that it comes with 2 copies, okay? And it also, the plastic edition comes with this wallet, so you can take, this is the version that you take on the go with you, and you can keep this one at home inside of the box. So in this game, you're gonna manage your resources. You have these 3 types of resources, all in your hand, like I said. So you're gonna acquire them, all right, and you're gonna go through your hand trying to spend the resources to improve your cards by rotating them or flipping them. And when you spend your resources, you just put them back like that. So after you go through your hand, you're gonna when you reach the round card, you flip it and you move on to the next round, okay? So you start at round 1 and it goes all the way up to round 8. So wonderful game. I love the puzzle that it offers, and I love that I can play this anywhere. You don't need a table. You can just play this while standing, while waiting in line. or on an airplane seat. You don't even need the little airplane table. So just great game and very simple rules, satisfying puzzle. It'll take you 15 minutes is about right, 15 plus minutes in my experience, so that checks out. So Palm Island, awesome game, and I highly recommend the plastic edition so that you don't have to sleeve it. It's gonna see a lot of wear and tear, right? Because it's in your hand. So yeah, Palm Island, check it out. Next, we have Aerion, and this is a game by Shadi Torby, part of the Oniverse series of games, and these are games that tend to be very solitaire focused, and they all look have this look, and they use the same artist, and they all include expansions, which is pretty cool. I'll talk about that later. But in this game, what you're doing is you're trying to build these ships which start face down like this, and they tell you which materials you need. So you're gonna need a pilot, a schematic, and a material, and you're gonna get those from this deck. All right. So you have to build all ships by gathering the necessary materials and flipping them like this in order to win before the cards run out. And you're gonna be rolling dice, trying to obtain the necessary pairings of dice in order to acquire the materials in question. So all of these Oniverse games come with mini expansion modules that you can mix and match, already included in the box, which adds a lot of replayability, which is awesome. And I've tried other Oniverse games, and another fan favorite is Onirim. Read about that one, maybe you'll like it. And there's also an app that I'm pretty sure it's still free. You can try it for free. I wasn't a fan of it personally. The puzzle for that of Onirim didn't do anything for me, and there was a lot of shuffling which I didn't enjoy. But that's a fan favorite. Maybe you'll like it. But this is the one that I gravitate more towards and that I keep coming back to. So read about other Oniverse games. They vary in complexity. So this one is pretty light, and the artwork is just charming as heck, just lovely. And Aerion, check it out. All right, so we've arrived at the final stretch, and we're gonna start with number 5 here with One Deck Dungeon. So I just love how much this game packs in this tiny box. It's just so wonderful how this game captures the dungeon crawl experience in relatively quick games, and it's pretty abstract though, but it's awesome. So, and if you like chucking dice, this is the game for you. You're gonna be rolling dice left and right. In this game, you're gonna pick a character, and you're gonna have some starting stats which determine how many and which color dice you roll. And you're gonna go up against traps and monsters fighting through the dungeon. And every time you defeat a trap or a enemy, you're gonna be rewarded either a stat increase, a ability, or experience. All right. And I just love the multi-use cards. Every time you face an enemy, you're gonna roll dice according to your stats, and you need to try to match the dice to the color and the number. All right. And your goal is to try to cover everything. So the more dice you roll, the better. And another awesome thing that this game does is it has a campaign system, which I think honestly is meant for it to be played. You can play it as one-off sessions with different characters, but I suggest you pick a character and stick to it for various games, and get the campaign rewards so that your character becomes stronger, and it lets you face stronger and more difficult dungeons and monsters. And another cool thing is that you can fit the Forest of Shadows expansion just in the One Deck Dungeon box, sleeved and everything. And you can just start with the regular base game, but you can also just buy the Forest of Shadow expansion, which is a standalone expansion. You can play either, start with either. I recommend this one though, just the regular One Deck Dungeon. But yeah, just wonderful system. I just love what this does with just a deck of cards, some dice, and your character sheets. And 100% one of the top games I would recommend for someone to start with. One Deck Dungeon, can't go wrong in my opinion. Okay, moving on, we have Cartographers, and this is one of my favorite solo games. It's not just a great introductory solo game. It's just an amazing game overall. One of my favorites. So This is a verb and write type of game. Remember when I talked about Castles of Burgundy, I mentioned this category of games where you're either going to be rolling dice or flipping a deck of cards, and you're going to use a sheet of paper and a pen or pencils. So in this game, instead of rolling dice, you're going to flip from this deck, and every time you flip a card, it'll instruct you to draw a shape. And you can either pick a color, or sometimes it'll tell you to only draw one specific color. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to draw scoring conditions that will kind of suggest how you should draw the shapes to get the best score possible. And I just love the creativity that this game offers, because you can draw super detailed maps, or you can draw derpy maps like mine, or you can draw beautiful illustrations. I've seen what some people have done drawing maps, and it's nuts. So I love the creativity aspect of it. There's little to no AI upkeep, honestly. The only time that you're not just doing your own thing is when you flip one of these ambush cards, which is typically a bad thing. It'll just try to throw an obstacle and force you to draw a shape where you might not necessarily want it to be drawn. But that really is it. Other than when you draw those cards, it's just you thinking, every time you flip a card, thinking of how to best fit those shapes and just drawing them in there. There's tons of different scoring conditions to keep it varied, and there's expansions too. You can buy map packs to keep it fresh. The base game comes with 2 sides, and I've not felt the need to buy a map pack yet, honestly. So I've just had a ton of fun with this. But just a wonderful game. I recommend you get color pens. It makes a pretty big difference to me, in my opinion. Makes it a bit easier to identify the shapes. But yeah, Cartographers, just wonderful, awesome game. Can't go wrong in my opinion. Check out Cartographers. Okay, next we have Orchard and or Grove. So these are games by Mark Tuck that are very simple and offer a very nice puzzle in a small table space and a very quick amount of time, 10 minutes, which is about right. So the first iteration of this game was Orchard, and he recently released Grove, which is an evolution of this system. And I like both. You really can't go wrong with either. And what happens in this game is you have a deck of cards that you shuffle at the beginning, and you're gonna draw 9 of them, and that's gonna be used for the game. All right, so once you set up the game, you're gonna flip a card, and you're gonna start laying them on top of each other and creating a little garden, if you will. But you have to lay them so that the colors match, and the more you can you're gonna puzzle with this, so that the more you place on top efficiently, the higher you score. And you use these dice to track how many you've stacked on top with the correct matching color, right, of the groves, the orchards. So now I can't this one is a bit abstract. It's a bit harder to explain in a short amount of time, but trust me, it's just a lovely puzzle, and it's very simple, and the cards are made of plastic, which is a huge plus for me. It's super portable. Just look at the tiny box it comes in. So Grove is very similar. It's just a bit of an there's a few differences, but they're different enough that you can keep both, and you can try either, see which one you're more attracted to. But I just love the puzzle that this offers in such a quick amount of time, man. And because it's a 9-card game, it actually comes with 18 cards, each of them, but you only use 9 out of them, so you can play 2 games in a row really quick. All right, because you already set up, basically. You use 9 of the 18 cards, play a game, you're done, and then you use the other 9 cards. So it applies to both of these. But awesome games, come in a tiny box, super portable. Either Orchard or Grove, you can't really go wrong with either. So pick whichever one you're more attracted to and check them out. Awesome games. Alright, so moving on, we have Buttonshy Games. Now I'm gonna have to cheat here a bit, because I did not want Buttonshy Games to occupy a whole bunch of spots. I wanted to make sure I highlighted other games. So Buttonshy Games, in case you don't know, are 18-card wallet games. and they have many great solo board games in that category. They're not exclusively a solo game company, they have multiplayer games too, but I've played many of their wallet games, and there's some wonderful experiences that they offer, and they range from more complex ones to simpler and more relaxed ones with lighter rule sets. And many people will give you different opinions as to which ones are their favorites and which ones you should pick first. So here goes nothing. These are the ones that I think you should pick up. So I'm gonna start with Sprawlopolis, and these are in no particular order, by the way. Just pick whichever one of these, or for that matter, when you go to their website, if you read more about them, whatever you sounds fun to you. But I'm gonna give you my pitch for some of these. So Sprawlopolis, and in this game, you're gonna lay city cards in order to build a city. Okay. And it has very simple artwork, very simple rules, and it offers a very brain-burning puzzle. Right. So I really like Sprawlopolis, and it's one of the most popular titles from their library, and I think it's one of the top ones, honestly. Now, it's gonna be a bit difficult at the beginning. You're gonna lose a lot. There's hard win and loss conditions every time that you get the scoring conditions. Okay, so it'll be a bit tough at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, you're gonna score better. So that's the only warning. But great game, very brain burning. All right, very simple rules. Then on the lighter side, we have Skulls of Sedlec. So the rules in this game are very simple, and you're gonna need a expansion in order to play it solo. It only costs a couple extra dollars, and it includes some cards. But this game I just love how simple it is. You're basically digging, the theme of the game is that you're digging skulls, okay? And you need to create a pile of skulls, and you're trying to arrange the skulls that you dig up in a way so that you can score as best as possible. So there's skulls that score based on if they're adjacent to XYZ, or if they have certain skulls below them, or the lovers, for example. If you pair two lover skulls, they score at the end, but if they're not paired, they don't do anything. So, for example, so I just love how simple this is and the little puzzle it offers. Now, one bonus thing to know about Skulls of Sedlec is that you can print this right here to turn it into a flip and write game, which I think is super cool. All right, this is a free file that they offer, so that you can not only can you play this multiplayer solo, you can also use this deck of cards to turn it into a flip and write game, and you can just laminate the board and use a marker, or you can just print the card and make copies. But I love Skulls of Sedlec. From the simplest games that they offer, this is my favorite. Then we move on to Food Chain Island, and in Food Chain Island, you're gonna have a grid of cards of animals that you're gonna try to. It's randomly generated, okay, the layout of the cards, and each time you're trying to have the animals eat each other, and you have to use their special abilities so that you end with a perfect ecosystem. And I think this is a masterpiece. I really like this game. Because for just being 18 cards, it offers a great puzzle, and it has super simple rules. You're gonna learn how to play this game in no time, and it's super replayable, because the layout is the grid. Every time that you arrange the animals, it's different every time, and there's even more rules for variable layouts for the grid. Just awesome game, one of my favorites from their category. Then we have Ugly Gryphon in. Now, this one is the print and play version. I don't have the wallet version that you buy directly from them. They offer print and play versions of all their games, by the way. If you want to just pay a couple bucks, you can make this at home. If you have some bulk cards, you can just print them, right, and sleeve them. But Ugly Gryphon in is also a very simple game that amounts to a programming game, basically. You're trying to keep as many patrons as, and each patron has of your inn. They have quirks, and you're trying to keep them all in the hotel or whatever before one of your patrons scares the other patrons off. This one is a bit harder to explain, but it's basically a programming game. You have to stack the patrons as best as you can, and if one of them, arrives at the wrong time, it just triggers a bunch of abilities and it goes nuts. But just great games, and these are the ones that I would recommend you pick first. But people will give you different opinions, but feel free to check out their website and read whatever grabs your attention. But these are my suggestions, and I didn't want these occupying a bunch of spots on the list. But I really like Buttonshy Games. They're very charming, and they're very loved by the solo board gaming community, and they offer lots of very interesting experiences. So definitely check them out when starting in this hobby. Grab at least a couple of their games and have fun. Alright, so finally we've arrived at my number one suggestion for anyone that wants to get into the solo board gaming hobby. Unequivocally, I will always recommend Desolate. And Desolate is what amounts to a dungeon crawler set in space, alright? It's by Jason Glover, a beloved designer in the solo board gaming community. I'll talk a bit more about him later. But in Desolate, the goal is to gather all 5 power cells for your ship before you run out of health or ammo or oxygen, okay? And along the way, you're going to have to manage those resources while encountering different locations or even fighting aliens, all right? And I just love the experience that this game offers with the minimum amount of components. You're going to be rolling dice to determine combat, by the way, okay, which is cool. Now, and one big reason I think this game is great for beginners is because the rules are just one page. Just look at that, front and back. That's it. Very, very simple rules. And there's expansions too if you want to add more mechanics and more replayability. It's just wonderful. The game just drips atmosphere with everything is black and white. The art is drawn by Jason Glover himself. Just a wonderful game. I have 2 print and play versions, by the way, so this is not a game that you're gonna find at any at a retail store. You have to buy it from the Game Crafter, or you can buy the print and play files. I have not bought the crafted version. I made it myself using the print and play files, which you can buy pretty cheap. I'll leave links to all of that. And I have 2 versions. I have a box that contains all the expansions, all crafted myself, and then I have a smaller version that's more portable. That's just the base game. And if you want to save yourself some time when crafting the game, one suggestion I have, just so that you don't have to worry about the backs of the cards, just use different colored sleeves, all right? Because there's different types of decks that are used for the games that are going to have different backs. But it'll cut your amount of labor significantly if you just use some opaque sleeves, all right? So little suggestion there if you decide that you want to craft this game at home. And one warning though, if you want to get games from the Game Crafter, if you live outside of the US, the shipping can be a bit high, all right, for sure. So when you visit the Game Crafter, keep that in mind. Now, if you end up liking Desolate, you can check out other Jason Glover games. He has tons of awesome solo games. This dungeon crawling system, this was the first iteration for it, Desolate, and then he came up with Iron Helm, one of my favorite solo games. You can later check that out if you end up liking Desolate. Great evolution of that system. And later on, he released Tin Helm. Now, you can't go wrong with Tin Helm. You can use Tin Helm as your starting game instead of Desolate if you want. It's a bit more portable, but I prefer Desolate because it's black and white. It's pretty cheap to print and play. You could, if you spend an evening, you could craft this game at home anywhere in the world once you get the files. There's no print and play files for this, unfortunately. So that's really the only thing against me offering this initially. So I recommend Desolate, and it's a bit simpler. But if you want to go with Tin Helm, can't go wrong with this either, honestly. But yeah, those are Jason Glover games, and Desolate, my unequivocal recommendation that no doubt I would tell anyone if they want to get started into this hobby. It's just so easy to craft, or the rules are simple. It's just pure fun, and check out Desolate. Alright, so I hope you've enjoyed that, and hopefully one of the games that I share with you today will be suitable for you as your first choice to get into this awesome hobby. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, please put them in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next one.